I'm
I've
glad
been
to have
thinking
you
a lot
here.
about this
Follow
situation,
my
and it
story until the
really
end and
worries me.
comment the city you're watching from. I went to look for my
I,
jewelry in the safe and found nothing.
um,
My daughter-in-law looked at me and said,
Sometimes you
"Mother-in-law,
just have to
we
make a
donated
decision.
everything. You don't need that anymore." I looked at her calmly and replied, "You're right. I don't need them anymore, but you are going to need a lawyer." The color drained from her face. My hands trembled as I placed the last red rose on James's casket. 42 years together, and a massive heart attack took him from me one ordinary Tuesday morning over breakfast. We had been planning our trip to Florida. I never even got to say goodbye. The March air was cold against my tear-stained face. My black dress, the one James always said made me look elegant, felt heavy on my shoulders. Our 4 children stood beside me. Isabella from Denver, Marcus from Nashville, Sophia from Austin, and Raphael, my youngest, who lived here in Chicago. "Mom, we're here for you," Raphael whispered, squeezing my hand. But nothing could fill the emptiness that followed. The house that once vibrated with laughter and conversation became a museum of memories that suffocated me. James's coffee cup still sat at the kitchen table. His reading glasses rested on the nightstand. His cologne lingered on his pillows that I refused to wash. The first few months were a silent hell. I'd wake up reaching for him, only to find cold sheets beside me. I'd cook too much food out of habit, then stare at the leftovers, a reminder that no one was coming home to eat them. I'd start to tell him something before remembering all over again that he was gone. My children called and visited when they could. Isabella called twice a week, her voice filled with concern. "Mom, do you need me to come back? I can take some time off." But she had 3 children and a demanding job in Denver. I couldn't ask her to drop everything for me. Marcus and Sophia called too, but they had their own lives far away. It was Raphael, my youngest, who became my lifeline. He lived just 20 minutes away and would stop by every few days, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with my favorite pastries from Moretti's bakery. He'd stay for dinner, fix things around the house, and fill the silence with stories about his work at the investment firm. One Sunday, 6 months after the funeral, Raphael arrived with someone I didn't recognize. A young woman with long dark hair, striking features, and a confident smile stood beside him, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Mom, I'd like you to meet someone special," Raphael said, his eyes bright. "This is Gabriela Rodriguez." She stepped forward and handed me the flowers. "Mrs. Perez, it's an honor to meet you. Raphael has told me so much about you." Her voice was warm, her handshake firm. "I'm so sorry about your husband. Raphael says he was an amazing man. I invited them in, and while I made coffee, I watched how Raphael looked at her, the same way James used to look at me. They had met at Raphael's firm where she worked in the marketing department. As they talked, I noticed how she listened intently when I spoke about James, how she helped clear the dishes without being asked, and how she made Raphael laugh in a way I hadn't seen since his father died. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe life wasn't completely over. Over the next few months, Gabriela became a regular presence in my home. She'd bring fresh pastries from a Colombian bakery downtown. She'd walk with me to the neighborhood farmers market on Saturdays. She'd listen to my stories about James and the early years of our marriage with genuine interest. "You two had such a beautiful love story," she'd say. "Raphael tells me you were high school sweethearts." I found myself looking forward to their visits. The house felt alive again when they were there, and when Raphael told me they were getting married, I cried with happiness. "Mom, are you okay with this?" Raphael asked, concern in his eyes. "I'm more than okay," I said, hugging them both. James would have loved her too. The wedding was small but beautiful, held in the garden of our local church. I helped plan the reception and even contributed a significant amount to make sure they had the celebration they deserved. Gabriella's parents had passed away when she was young, and she had no close family, which made me want to embrace her even more. After they returned from their honeymoon in Mexico, Gabriella stopped by one afternoon while Raphael was at work. She brought coffee and cannoli, and we sat in the kitchen just chatting about their trip. Then she grew serious. "Laura, there's something Raphael and I wanted to talk to you about," she said, stirring her coffee slowly. "We're currently renting a small apartment downtown, and it's really expensive. We're trying to save for our own home, but Chicago real estate." She shook her head. My heart beat faster. I had a feeling I knew what was coming. "We were thinking, and please feel free to say no, what would you think if we moved in with you? Just temporarily, until we save enough for a down payment." She reached across the table and touched my hand. "You're in this big house all alone, and we could keep you company, help with maintenance, be there if you need anything." Relief washed over me. The thought of not being alone anymore, of having family around, of waking up to voices and life instead of silence. It was exactly what I needed. "That would be wonderful," I said without hesitation. Gabriella's face lit up. "Really? Oh, Laura, thank you. Raphael was worried you'd think we were imposing. This house is too big for just me. It would be nice to have it filled with family again." When Raphael came by that evening, he seemed surprised that I'd agreed so readily. "Mom, are you sure? We don't want to invade your space." "I'm sure," I said. "This house needs life in it again." 2 weeks later, they moved in. Raphael and Gabriella took the guest bedroom on the second floor, the one with the attached bathroom and the view of the backyard. They brought minimal furniture, storing most of their things in the basement. The first few months were blissful. Gabriella cooked amazing Colombian dishes that filled the house with spicy, fragrant aromas. Raphael fixed things around the house that had been neglected since James died. We started a tradition of movie nights on Fridays. On Sundays, Raphael would grill in the backyard, just like his father used to do. For the first time since James's death, I felt alive again. I felt needed, valued, part of a family. I should have seen the warning signs. The changes started so subtly that I didn't notice them at first. It was like a shadow creeping across the floor as the sun moves, so gradual you don't realize the light is disappearing until you're sitting in the dark. It began with small suggestions about the house. "Mother-in-law," Gabriella said one evening while we were having dinner. She had started calling me that instead of Laura. "Don't you think this furniture is a bit dated? The living room could use a refresh." I looked around at the furniture James and I had chosen together 30 years ago. The blue sofa was worn at the edges, the armchairs had some faded spots, but everything was clean and comfortable. "It's old, but it still works fine," I said. "But wouldn't it be nice to have something more modern? Something that brightens up the space?" She showed me pictures on her phone of sleek, contemporary furniture. "Raphael and I would be happy to help choose new pieces." "I suppose it wouldn't hurt to update a bit," I conceded, not wanting to seem resistant to change. The next weekend, they took me to a furniture store. I watched in bewilderment as they selected a minimalist gray sectional and glass coffee table that looked nothing like anything James and I would have chosen. But I said nothing. After all, it was just furniture. Next came the kitchen. "These cabinets are ancient," Gabriella commented one morning, running her hand along the oak cabinets James had installed himself. "And the countertops are so outdated. Granite is what everyone wants now." "James put those cabinets in himself," I said, a hint of defense in my voice. "I understand, mother-in-law, but maybe it's time for an update. A fresh start?" Her voice was gentle, reasonable. "Raphael agrees. Don't you, honey?" Raphael, standing at the refrigerator, nodded. "It might be good, Mom. The kitchen could use modernizing." I felt a twinge of unease, but pushed it aside. "Well, I suppose we could look into it. Before I knew it, contractors were tearing out the heart of my home. The oak cabinets disappeared, replaced by stark white ones. The laminate countertops James and I had chosen together were ripped out for cold, speckled granite. When it was finished, the kitchen looked like it belonged in a magazine. Beautiful, but sterile. I couldn't find anything without opening multiple cabinets. The high-tech appliances baffled me with their digital displays and complex settings. "Isn't it gorgeous?" Gabriella beamed, standing in the center of the renovated space. "It's very modern," I said, trying to sound appreciative. I didn't mention that I had no idea where my favorite mixing bowl was now, or that I couldn't figure out how to use the new oven. As the weeks passed, more of my home changed. The warm yellow walls of the living room were painted grage, a color I had never heard of. Family photos were replaced with abstract art. The handmade quilt from James's mother disappeared from the sofa, replaced by geometric throw pillows. Then came the comments about my personal choices. "Mother-in-law, do you really need to wear so much perfume?" Gabriella asked one morning as I prepared to meet my friend Linda for coffee. "It's quite strong, and some people might be sensitive to it." It was the perfume James had given me every Christmas for decades. "Laura, that outfit is a bit matronly, don't you think?" she remarked another day. "I have some catalogs with clothes that would be more flattering for your age." Catalogs for elderly women, I realized as I flipped through them later. Shapeless garments in washed-out colors. I began to second-guess every choice. My clothes, my perfume, my opinions. When I suggested watching an old movie I loved, Gabriella would wrinkle her nose. "That's so outdated. Let's watch something more current." My friends noticed the changes in me. Linda, after our coffee date, pulled me aside. "Laura, are you okay? You seem different." I brushed it off. "Just adjusting to living with the kids. It's fine." But it wasn't fine. One evening, Gabriella approached me with a folder of papers. "Mother-in-law, Raphael and I have been thinking. You shouldn't have to worry about bills and finances at your age. It must be so stressful managing everything alone." "I've been handling the finances since James died," I said. "I'm doing fine. But wouldn't it be easier if we helped? We could set up automatic payments, manage the investments, make sure everything is running smoothly." Her voice was so reasonable, so concerned. "You wouldn't have to worry about a thing." Before I knew what was happening, I was signing papers giving Gabriella access to my accounts. "It's just so we can help you," she assured me. "You'll still have complete control." That was the beginning of the end of my financial independence. As I signed, I caught a glimpse of something in her eyes, a flash of triumph quickly masked by a smile. But I dismissed it. After all, this was Raphael's wife. They lived in my home. They were family. I didn't realize I had just handed over the keys to my own destruction. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a strange unease. The house no longer felt like mine. The photographs of James were gone from the hallway, replaced by modern art. His books had been packed away to make room for decorative objects. Even his chair had been moved to the basement because it didn't match the new aesthetic. It was as if James was being erased piece by piece. I reached for my phone to call Isabella, my eldest, but stopped. What would I say? That I didn't like the new furniture? That I missed James's chair? It seemed so petty, so resistant to change. I didn't want to be that kind of mother-in-law, the one who complained about everything, who couldn't adapt, who made her children's lives difficult. So I said nothing, and another piece of my independence slipped away. Morning used to be my favorite time of day. I would wake at 6, pad quietly to the kitchen, brew a pot of coffee, and listen to the morning news while watching the sunrise from the kitchen window. It was my sacred ritual, a peaceful start before the world grew noisy. Now mornings had become a source of anxiety. "Mother-in-law," Gabriella said one day, appearing in the kitchen doorway in her silk pajamas, her face creased with irritation. "Could you please not make so much noise in the morning? The coffee grinder woke me up and I need my sleep." I glanced at the clock. 6:30 a.m. "I'm sorry, I've always been an early riser." "Well, could you maybe have breakfast later? Or at least not use the grinder or listen to the radio? The sound carries upstairs." From that day forward, I tiptoed around my own kitchen in the mornings. I switched to instant coffee, which James would have considered a sacrilege. I ate breakfast in silence. No radio, no news, barely breathing, feeling like an intruder in my own home. One morning, I found a note on the coffee maker. "Please don't use. Noise disturbs our sleep. There's instant coffee in the pantry. Thank you." I stood staring at the note, coffee mug in hand, feeling a heaviness settle over me. James and I had bought that coffee maker together on our anniversary trip to Seattle. He had loved the rich, dark roast it produced. Now I wasn't allowed to use it. The control extended to my finances in ways I hadn't anticipated. One day, my granddaughter Sarah's 12th birthday was approaching, and I wanted to buy her something special, a silver charm bracelet I'd seen at the jewelry store in the mall. I went to get cash from my wallet. Empty. I looked for my debit card. It wasn't there. I found Gabriella in the living room, scrolling through her phone. "Gabriella, have you seen my debit card?" She looked up, slightly annoyed at the interruption. "I have it, mother-in-law. Remember, I'm managing the expenses now. What do you need it for?" "I want to buy a birthday gift for Sarah," she sighed. "We already got her something from all of us, a gift card to that store she likes. But I always get her something special, just for me." "Mother-in-law," she said, her voice taking on that patient tone one might use with a child. "At your age, you don't need to be spending extra money on these things. Why spoil the girl? The gift card is plenty." I stood there, feeling small and useless. I had never missed one of my grandchildren's birthdays. Each year, I took pride in finding them something thoughtful, something that showed I knew and loved them as individuals, not just as the grandchildren. "I'd still like to get her something," I insisted quietly. Gabriella's expression hardened slightly. "Well, we're trying to budget carefully. Your pension only goes so far. And with the kitchen renovation and the new furniture," she let the sentence hang, implying I had no money to spare because of expenses I hadn't even wanted. That weekend, I attended Sarah's birthday party empty-handed for the first time. The look of confusion on her face when she hugged me and realized I had no gift for her broke my heart. "No present this year, Grandma?" she asked, her young face puzzled. "I'm afraid not, sweetheart. But I helped pick out the gift card we gave you." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. Later, my daughter Isabella pulled me aside. "Mom, are you okay? You never forget the kids' birthdays." I considered telling her everything, about the debit card, about how I was losing control of my own home, my own life. But Gabriella appeared at that moment, her arm slipping through mine. "Your mother has been so helpful with all the renovations at the house," she said smoothly. "I think she's just a bit tired, aren't you, mother-in-law?" What could I say? That I hated the renovations? That I was being treated like a child in my own home? I just nodded, and the moment to confide in Isabella passed. My weekly book club at Linda's house had been my salvation after James died. Every Thursday, I would join 5 other widows my age. We'd discuss the book of the week, but more importantly, we'd talk about our lives, our struggles, our joys. It was the one place I felt understood, where I didn't have to explain the hollow feeling that comes from losing your life partner. But Gabriella began to sabotage even this small freedom. "Are you going out again?" she'd ask on Thursdays, her tone slightly disapproving. "It looks like rain. You'll catch a cold." "I'll take an umbrella." "I have to go shopping today. I can't give you a ride. I can drive myself." I had been driving for over 50 years. "Your car needs an oil change. Raphael was going to look at it this weekend." Excuse after excuse, week after week. Sometimes I pushed back and went anyway, but often I gave in, too tired to fight. Then came the day I received a call from Linda. "Laura, are you okay?" Gabriella called me. She said you haven't been feeling well, that you've been forgetting things. My blood ran cold. What? I feel fine, Linda. I haven't forgotten anything. She said the doctor recommended you not go out alone anymore, that sometimes you get confused. I gripped the phone tighter. That's not true. I haven't seen a doctor in months, and there's nothing wrong with my memory. When I confronted Gabriella, she looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. Oh, mother-in-law, it was just a misunderstanding. I only told them we need to take better care of you. But the damage was done. The next time I went to book club, I noticed the change in how my friends treated me. The careful way they spoke, as if I might break. The concerned glances when I struggled to remember an author's name, something that happens to everyone. The safe space no longer felt safe. I stopped going. My world was shrinking, day by day. The house that had once been my domain was now Gabriella's territory. The finances I had managed capably were no longer in my control. The friends who had supported me were fed lies about my mental state. Even my relationship with my children was being filtered through Gabriella's influence. And Raphael, my sweet youngest son, was changing too. He came home late from work most days, ate dinner quickly, and retreated to their bedroom. When I tried to talk to him alone, Gabriella always seemed to appear. "What are you two talking about?" she'd ask brightly. "Any secrets?" Raphael would bow his head slightly, as if avoiding eye contact. The confident, affectionate son I knew was being replaced by a shadow, a man who walked on eggshells in his own mother's home. One evening, I found him alone in the backyard, sitting on the old bench where James used to smoke his occasional cigar. I sat beside him, gathering my courage. "Raphael, honey, I need to talk to you." He didn't look at me. "What is it, Mom?" "It's Gabriella. The way things are in the house. I feel like this isn't my home anymore." He tensed visibly. "Mom, please don't start. Gabriella is trying her best to help you." "Help me?" "Raphael, she's taken my debit card. She's telling my friends I'm losing my memory. She's—" "Enough!" The word came out sharp, angry. He stood up. "Mom, you're exaggerating everything. Gabriella is at her wit's end with you." I sat stunned, looking up at my son, James's son, as he towered over me, his face twisted with frustration. "Do you have any idea how much she sacrifices to live here with you? She gave up our apartment downtown, her freedom. She manages this whole house, your finances, everything, and all you do is complain." Tears stung my eyes. "Raphael, that's not true. No, Mom, you're the problem. You cling to the past. You don't accept change. You make Gabriella feel like an intruder in her own home." "Her home?" I whispered. "This is my house, Raphael. The house your father and I bought, that he left to me." Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, guilt, a moment of clarity. But it was gone so quickly I thought I imagined it. He turned and walked back to the house, leaving me alone in the gathering darkness. I sat there long after he'd gone, the cool night air settling around me like a shroud. In that moment, I understood a terrible truth. I had no allies. Gabriella had won. She had turned my own son against me. She had isolated me from my friends. She had taken control of my money, my decisions, my life. And I had let her, out of fear, out of loneliness, out of not wanting to admit that the woman my son loved was actually destroying me. But I still didn't know how far she was willing to go. The worst was just beginning. September 23rd, my birthday. For 68 years, that date had been a day of celebration, of feeling special and loved. James would always wake me with a cup of coffee and fresh flowers. The children would call or visit. Cards would arrive in the mail. It was a day when I felt the bonds of family wrapped around me like a warm blanket. This year would be my first birthday without James. I woke up with a hollow feeling in my chest, reaching instinctively for his side of the bed before remembering, as I did every morning, that he was gone. I lay there for a moment, listening to the quiet house. Raphael had already left for work. He had an early meeting. Gabriella was still asleep. I slipped out of bed, trying to hold on to the hope that today might still be special, that my family would remember. I made my instant coffee in silence, not daring to use the grinder. I sat at the kitchen table, watching the clock. 8 o'clock passed, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. My phone remained silent. No calls from Isabella, Marcus, or Sophia. No text messages. Nothing. At 11, Gabriella emerged from her room, already scrolling through her phone. "Morning, mother-in-law," she said without looking up. "Good morning," I replied, waiting for some acknowledgement of the day. She poured herself some orange juice and sat down with a yogurt, still focused on her phone. I watched her, waiting for the happy birthday that never came. Nothing. Not a word, not a card, not even a perfunctory acknowledgement. I sipped my cold coffee, the bitter taste matching my disappointment. Had everyone forgotten? Or had Gabriella somehow intercepted cards, messages, calls? I couldn't be sure, but the doubt gnawed at me. Around 3 in the afternoon, I overheard Gabriella on the phone in the kitchen. Yes, come over around 7. Bring some snacks. It's going to be fun." My heart lifted. A surprise party? Had I been wrong to doubt her? Were my children coming over to celebrate after all? I retreated to my bedroom and put on the blue dress James had given me for our last anniversary together. I applied a little makeup, a touch of the perfume Gabriella had criticized. If they were surprising me, I wanted to look my best. At 6, Gabriella found me in the living room. "Mother-in-law, some friends of mine are coming over in a little while," she said, straightening the cushions on the sofa. "We're going to be a bit loud, so you might want to stay in your room." I froze. "Your friends?" "Yes, just a small get-together." "Today? You're having friends over today?" She glanced at me, puzzled by my tone. "Yes. Is there a problem?" I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Today is my birthday, Gabriella." She blinked, a moment of genuine surprise crossing her face. "Oh, I had no idea. Happy birthday, mother-in-law." Then she continued arranging the living room. "So as I was saying, my friends will be here around 7. We'll try to keep it down, but..." I sat there, stunned. Not only had she forgotten my birthday, but she was having a party, in my home, and asking me to hide in my room. "I thought," I started, then stopped, embarrassed by my own expectations. "Never mind." "Thought what?" she asked, barely paying attention. "Nothing, forget it." She glanced at her watch. "Actually, could you help me put together some snacks? I still need to get ready." And so, on my 68th birthday, in my own home, I found myself in the kitchen preparing food for my daughter-in-law's friends while wearing the dress James had given me. The irony was bitter and sharp. At 7, they began to arrive. 5 women, all in their early 30s, carrying wine bottles and laughing loudly. Gabriella greeted them with exuberant hugs, her demeanor completely different from the controlled, often critical woman I knew. "Everyone, this is my mother-in-law, Laura," she said, gesturing toward me. "Mother-in-law, these are my friends from work." They nodded politely in my direction, then immediately turned back to each other, their conversation resuming as if I wasn't there. "Mother-in-law, you can go up to your room if you want to rest," Gabriella said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. But something in me refused to retreat. This was my home, my birthday. I wouldn't be banished to my room like a child past her bedtime. "I think I'll stay down here for a while," I said, sitting in the armchair in the corner. the only piece of original furniture that had survived Gabriella's renovation. The party flowed around me as if I were invisible. They played music, opened bottles of wine, spread out on my new grey sectional sofa. No one spoke to me or even looked in my direction. I sat there in my blue dress, a ghost at my own non-birthday celebration. And then I heard the conversation that would change everything. Gabriella was in the kitchen with two of her friends, just behind where I was sitting. They didn't notice me, or perhaps they didn't care if I overheard. "So, girl, when are you guys moving into your own place?" one friend asked. "Didn't you say it was just temporary?" Gabriella lowered her voice, but not enough. "Why would we? This house is going to be ours soon enough." I froze, straining to hear. "What? How?" "The old woman has already signed a bunch of papers without reading them," Gabriella said, a smug tone in her voice. "Raphael has power of attorney. It's just a matter of time." My blood ran cold. Power of attorney? I had never signed such a document. Or had I? There had been so many papers, so many times when Gabriella had said, "Just sign here, mother-in-law. It's for the household expenses." "But what about her?" the other friend asked. Gabriella laughed softly. "I've almost convinced Raphael to put her in a home. His cousin in Nashville runs a nice facility. It's not too expensive, and once she's there—" She paused, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Once she's there, we sell this old house, buy something modern, and keep the rest. This place is worth at least $800,000. Can you imagine?" "But what if she refuses?" the first friend asked. "Friend, the old woman is already senile. She forgets everything. She doesn't think clearly. It'll be easy to get a doctor to certify that she needs specialized care." The three of them laughed, and I sat 10 feet away, listening to them plan the theft of my home, my life. But the worst, the absolute worst part, was when Raphael arrived home from work. He walked in, saw the gathering, and greeted Gabriella's friends with a tired smile. "Honey, come here," Gabriella called to him. Raphael walked into the kitchen, and from my corner, I watched them speak in whispers. I couldn't hear clearly, but I saw Gabriella point in my direction. I saw the uncomfortable look on Raphael's face. I saw him nod. My son had just agreed to the plan to lock me in a nursing home and steal my home. Something inside me shattered in that moment. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt the last shred of love I had for my son crumble into dust. I stood up silently. None of Gabriella's friends noticed me leave. They were too busy laughing and drinking my wine. Raphael didn't see me either. I walked up the stairs, closed my bedroom door, and sat on the edge of the bed. And then, only then, did I let myself cry. I cried for James, for my lost jewelry, for my son who had chosen that woman over me, for the woman I had become. Scared, small, invisible. But most of all, I cried with rage. My fists clenched the bedsheets until my knuckles turned white. Downstairs, people were celebrating my future disappearance. And I was up here hiding like a coward. I looked at my reflection in the vanity mirror. The woman looking back at me had swollen eyes. Her makeup was smeared. Her blue dress was wrinkled. She looked defeated. But then I saw something else. I saw the eyes of the woman who had raised 4 children while her husband worked long hours building his law practice. I saw the hands of the woman who had built a home from nothing. I saw the strength of the woman who had survived the death of her husband. And I made a decision. No more. No more hiding. No more letting myself be walked all over. No more being the submissive old woman Gabriella wanted. I wiped my tears. I stood up. I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called since James's funeral. Matthew Thompson. The voice was deep, familiar. James's best friend and law partner for 30 years, Raphael's godfather. Matthew, it's Laura Perez. Laura? Is everything okay? It's almost 9 o'clock. No, everything is not okay. I need your help. What's happening? Are you ill? I'm being robbed, Matthew. My own family is robbing me. There was a pause. Don't say anything more on the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 10 o'clock? Yes. Laura, James made me promise that if you ever needed help, I'd be there. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next morning, I told Gabriella I had a doctor's appointment. She barely looked up from her phone. Do you need me to come with you? She asked, her tone making it clear she hoped I'd say no. No, I'll take a cab. Well, don't be back too late. I have plans for dinner. I nodded, swallowing the angry words that threatened to escape. Let her think I was still the same docile, beaten-down old woman. Let her think she had won. Matthew's law office was in the same downtown building it had always been in. I took the elevator to the 14th floor, my heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and resolve. The receptionist, a young woman who hadn't been there when James was alive, looked up as I entered. May I help you? I'm Laura Perez. I have an appointment with Matthew Thompson. Her eyes widened slightly. Mrs. Perez? James's wife? I nodded, touched that she knew who I was. Of course, Mr. Thompson is waiting for you. She led me to his office, a corner space with large windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. Matthew stood as I entered, his tall frame still imposing despite his 70 years. His hair was silver now, his face more lined, but his blue eyes were sharp as ever. He came around the desk and embraced me. Laura, it's been too long. He held me at arm's length, studying my face. You don't look well. The simple acknowledgement of my distress nearly broke me. For months, no one had really seen me, really noticed what was happening to me. I blinked back tears. Sit down, he said gently, guiding me to a comfortable chair. Tell me everything. And I did. I told him about the missing jewelry, about the control over my money, about how Gabriella managed my bank account, about the daily humiliation, about how Raphael had become a stranger. I told him about the conversation I'd overheard on my birthday, about the plans to put me in a home and sell my house. Matthew listened in silence, taking notes, his brow furrowing deeper and deeper. When I finished, he took off his reading glasses and set them on the desk. Laura, what you're describing is elder financial abuse. According to Illinois state law, it's fraud and potentially domestic economic violence. Can I do something about it? We can do a lot, but I need you to authorize an investigation. He leaned forward. Do you trust me? With my life. Give me a week. That week was the longest of my life. The days crawled by. The ticking of the living room clock hammered at my temples. Every time Gabriella entered a room, I held my breath, afraid she would somehow know what I was doing. At home, I acted as if nothing was wrong. I smiled when Gabriella gave me orders. I nodded when she told me what to eat, what to watch, what to do. I became the submissive old woman she wanted me to be, but inside, I was a storm of rage and determination. 7 days later, Matthew called. Come in tomorrow. I have information. The next day, when I arrived at his office, there was a thick folder on his desk. He gestured for me to sit. This isn't going to be easy to hear, Laura. I'm ready. He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. First, the jewelry. I hired a private investigator. He slid a photograph across the desk. They weren't donated. My heart lurched. In the photo was my emerald earrings, the ones James had given me on our 20th anniversary, sitting in a pawn shop display case. Where are they? In a pawn shop on the south side, pawned in the name of Gabriella Perez. How much? I asked, afraid of the answer. She got $35,000 for all of it. $35,000. James's emeralds. My mother's pearls. The gold bracelets I got when each of my children was born. The diamond ring for my first granddaughter. 40 years of memories turned into cash. There's more. Matthew slid some bank statements across the desk. I checked your account activity since you gave Gabriella access. His finger pointed to highlighted figures. Constant withdrawals, transfers, excessive purchases. How much? I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. Matthew looked me straight in the eye. A total of $89,000. The world stopped spinning. $89,000. Money James and I had scrimped and saved for. Money from my pension. From the sale of that plot of land upstate we'd bought as an investment. Stolen. Matthew, can I get it back? He nodded. Yes, but we have to do this right. If you confront her now, she could destroy evidence, transfer what's left, manipulate Raphael into saying you gave her permission. So what do I do? We keep gathering evidence, and in the meantime, he pulled out another set of papers. Let's review your legal standing. For the next hour, Matthew explained something I didn't know. James had left the house solely in my name in his will. There was no co-ownership, no heirs until after my death. The house was 100% mine. Gabriella has no legal claim to this property whatsoever, Laura. You can ask them to leave at any time. We also reviewed the bank accounts. This was a mistake, he said, pointing to the authorization I'd signed giving Gabriella access. You never should have given her access, but we can still fix it. We're going to open a new account in your name only, and we're going to transfer what's left before she realizes it. What if she gets angry? Let her get angry. It's your money. I left that office with a plan Gabriella would never see coming. The fresh city air filled my lungs as I walked to the cab stand. For the first time in years, I walked with my head held high, a sense of purpose in my step. The cabbie had to call me twice before I noticed him. Where to, ma'am? Chicago Metro Bank, please, the main branch. It was time to reclaim what was mine. I opened the new bank account that same day. The banker, a kind woman named Elaine who knew James, looked concerned as I explained that I needed an account only I could access. Mrs. Perez, is everything okay? She asked as she processed the paperwork. It will be, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in months. I transferred the $21,000 that was still left in my original account before Gabriella could touch it. It was a fraction of what had been there, but it was mine again. I got copies of all the statements from the past year, documenting every unauthorized withdrawal. When I returned home that afternoon, Gabriella was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. How was your doctor's appointment? She asked without looking up. Fine, I said. Hanging my coat in the closet, my purse tucked safely under my arm with the new bank cards hidden inside. Just a routine checkup. Did they say anything about your memory? Raphael and I are concerned. My hand froze on the closet door. The audacity of her statement after what I'd discovered nearly made me lose my composure, but I forced a smile. Everything's perfectly normal for my age. That night, as Gabriella and Raphael slept, I went to the safe in my closet, the same safe where my jewelry had been stored. I entered the combination, 3 turns to the right, 2 to the left, 1 more to the right, the same code I'd used for 30 years. The door swung open, still empty. I ran my fingers over the velvet lining where my treasures had once rested. Anger rose in me like a tide, but I channeled it into resolve. I had a new purpose, documenting everything. My cell phone became my secret weapon. I'd casually leave it on the table during conversations, recording app running. Over the next 2 weeks, I captured damning evidence. Gabriella telling a friend on the phone, "I've almost convinced Raphael to get the old woman to sign over power of attorney. After that, we can do whatever we want." Gabriella yelling at the contractor, "This house needs a complete overhaul. I'm not going to live in a museum to her dead husband." Raphael asking, "What if Mom finds out about the jewelry?" And Gabriella's chilling answer, "She won't find out. She can barely think straight anymore." Each recording was a knife in my heart, but it was also ammunition. Matthew had taught me to be patient, to wait for the perfect moment. "We can't move yet," he said during our phone calls, which I made while out on walks around the neighborhood. "We need more. We need her to get so confident that she makes a final, irreversible mistake." And then one night, I heard something that changed everything. I was in my bedroom, door closed, but not quite latched. Gabriella and Raphael were in the hallway, their voices carrying clearly. "The appointment is set for Tuesday," Gabriella said. "Dr. Mercer is a friend of my cousin's. He'll sign whatever we need." "I don't know about this, Gabby." Raphael's voice was uncertain. "Putting Mom in a home seems extreme. Raphael, we've talked about this. Your mother is not capable of living independently anymore. She's forgetting things, wandering around at night. It's for her own safety." All lies. But the house? Selling it so quickly after what? After we get her the care she needs? Don't you want what's best for her? Besides, we've already discussed this with the real estate agent. The market is hot right now. We could make a fortune. There was a long pause, and I held my breath, praying my son would stand up to her. "I guess you're right," he finally said, his voice defeated. "If the doctor thinks it's necessary, he will. Trust me." That night I made another call to Matthew. "They're moving faster than we thought," I told him, my voice trembling despite my resolve. "They have an appointment with some doctor next Tuesday to declare me incompetent." "Then we need to act now," Matthew said firmly. "How soon can you get your other children to Chicago?" The next morning I called Isabella. "Mom, is everything okay? You never call this early." "No, sweetheart, everything is not okay. I need you to come to Chicago as soon as possible, and I need you not to tell Raphael or Gabriella that you're coming." "Mom, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "I'll explain when you get here. Just please trust me. Can you come this weekend?" There was a pause, then determination in my daughter's voice. "I'm booking a flight right now. I'll be there Friday night." I made similar calls to Marcus and Sophia. They both agreed to come without question, hearing the urgency in my voice. Then I reached out to my sister Eleanor, who lived in Denver near Isabella. "Eleanor, I need a favor." "Anything, Laura. What's wrong? You sound upset." "I need you to come to Chicago, and I need you to bring your notary seal." Eleanor was silent for a moment. "This sounds serious." "It is. Very serious. I'm on my first flight out Friday morning." When I hung up, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The pieces were moving into place. The storm was coming, and for once I would not be caught unprepared. Gabriella noticed the change in me immediately. Her eyes narrowed when I hummed while making my instant coffee. She watched suspiciously when I spent time on my phone. "You're making a lot of calls lately, mother-in-law," she remarked one afternoon. "Who are you talking to so much?" "Just old friends," I said, smiling pleasantly. "At my age, it's important to stay connected." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what had changed. Friday arrived, and with it came Isabella. I had told Gabriella that my daughter was coming for a quick visit. "Why didn't she tell us sooner?" Gabriella demanded, clearly annoyed at the disruption to her plans. "It was a last-minute decision," I said, as he said. "She had some vacation days to use." When the doorbell rang that evening, I rushed to answer it. Isabella stood on the porch, her face tight with concern. When she saw me, her expression fell. "Mom, you've lost so much weight." I hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume. "I'm fine, honey. I'm just so glad you're here." Gabriella appeared behind me, her welcoming smile firmly in place. "Isabella, what a surprise visit. Raphael will be so happy to see you when he gets home from work." Isabella's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Gabriella, nice to see you too." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Isabella came to my room. I put a finger to my lips, turned on the shower in the adjoining bathroom, and led her inside, closing the door. The running water would mask our conversation from any listening ears. "Mom, what on earth is going on?" Isabella whispered, her face pale with worry. "They're trying to take everything from me," I said, my voice steady despite the weight of the words. "My home, my money, my dignity." I told her everything, about the stolen jewelry, the financial theft, the isolation, the plan to declare me incompetent and sell the house. Isabella's face transformed from confusion to shock to fury. "That witch!" she hissed, tears in her eyes. "Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was scared," I admitted. "Scared of being alone. Scared you all would think I was exaggerating. Scared no one would believe me." Isabella took my hands, her grip fierce. "You are never alone, Mom. Never. And I swear that woman is going to pay for what she's done to you. Oh, she's already starting to pay. But I need your help with what comes next." I explained the plan Matthew and I had prepared. Isabella listened intently, her lawyer's mind, so like her father's, working through the details. "Are you sure about this, Mom? It's going to get ugly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Isabella nodded, her jaw set. "Then count on me. Absolutely." Marcus arrived Saturday morning, his flight delayed by Chicago weather. Sophia came in the afternoon, having driven all the way from Austin. Eleanor arrived shortly after, her notary seal and legal pad in her bag. The house filled with voices, with my children, with life again, but also with tension. Gabriella watched us like a hawk, her eyes following our movements, her ears straining to catch our conversations. She inserted herself into every interaction, always with that same fixed smile that never reached her eyes. I could see her growing increasingly anxious. This sudden family gathering wasn't part of her plan. She hadn't had time to poison my other children against me as she had with Raphael. "Why is everyone visiting at once?" she asked Raphael loudly enough for me to hear from the kitchen. "Did something happen?" "I don't know," Raphael replied, his voice uncertain. "Mom just said she missed having everyone together." The smell of pot roast, James's favorite meal that I was cooking for dinner, filled the kitchen. Gabriella would walk in every few minutes, pretending to look for something, her eyes darting around like a caged animal. That afternoon, while we were preparing the meal, I gathered my 3 children and Eleanor in the backyard, away from the house, away from Gabriella's prying ears. "I need you to listen carefully," I said, looking at each of them in turn. I told them everything again, filling in details I hadn't been able to share over the phone. I showed them the bank statements Matthew had given me. I played some of the recordings I'd made of Gabriella's conversations. I watched Charles, my eldest, clench his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. "That woman," he growled. "And Raphael knows about this?" "Raphael is part of the problem," I said sadly. "He's so manipulated by her that he can't see straight anymore. He's agreed to have me declared incompetent and put in a nursing home." Sophia, my youngest daughter, had tears streaming down her face. "Mom, we're so sorry. We didn't realize. We live so far away." "It's not your fault," I assured her. Gabriella is very clever. She knows how to hide things. What do you need us to do? Isabella asked, always practical, always ready to take action. I need you to be here, to be witnesses, so that when the time comes, you back up everything I'm going to say. You can count on us, Marcus said firmly. All of us. Eleanor, my sister, and the notary public I needed for the final piece of my plan nodded. Laura, I've reviewed the documents Matthew prepared. They're ironclad. We just need to execute them at the right moment. And that moment is tomorrow, I said, looking at each of their determined faces. Sunday dinner, when we're all together, including Raphael. We returned to the house to find Gabriella in the kitchen, pretending to be checking the roast, but clearly trying to eavesdrop on our conversation. Everything okay out there? She asked, her voice falsely bright. You all looked so serious. Just catching up on family news, Eleanor said smoothly. It's been too long since we've all been together. Dinner that night was a masterclass in tension. Raphael seemed increasingly uncomfortable, caught between his wife's obvious displeasure at the family gathering and his siblings' cold politeness toward Gabriella. He picked at his food, barely speaking. Gabriella tried to maintain her facade of the perfect daughter-in-law, but I could see the strain in her smile, the tightness around her eyes. She knew something was wrong, but couldn't figure out what. After dinner, Eleanor and I retreated to my bedroom under the pretense of looking at old family photos. Instead, we reviewed the documents Matthew had prepared one final time. This is solid, Laura, Eleanor said, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she examined each page. Very solid. You have them for family fraud under the Illinois Penal Code, financial abuse, misappropriation of assets. The recordings are admissible as evidence since Illinois is a one-party consent state. Is it enough to sue her? I asked. It's enough to put her in jail if you want to go that far, Eleanor said, looking up at me over her glasses. The evidence is overwhelming. The air left my lungs in a rush. I don't want to destroy her. I just want my life back. Then you give her a choice. Either she returns everything and leaves, or she faces the legal consequences. Eleanor removed her glasses. But you need to be strong, Laura, because when you show her this, she's going to attack you with everything she has. I'm ready. And I was. Because during those 2 weeks of gathering evidence, I had done something else. I had retrieved every important document related to the house, the deed, James's will, the property certificates, the bank titles. Everything was now stored in a safe deposit box at the bank, in my name alone. I had also obtained something crucial, an updated medical certificate. Matthew had sent me to a trusted geriatric specialist, Dr. Helen Wong, who had run a full battery of tests, memory, reasoning, mental capacity. The result? Mrs. Laura Perez, age 68, is in full possession of her mental faculties. She shows no signs of cognitive decline or dementia. That piece of paper was pure gold, because when Gabriella tried to claim I was senile, that I couldn't think straight, that I needed someone to manage my life, I would have medical proof that it was a lie. The night before the final confrontation, I couldn't sleep. I sat up in bed, looking at the photograph of James on my nightstand. Tomorrow I take back our house, I whispered to his smiling face. I take back our dignity, and I give that woman the lesson she deserves. I could almost hear his voice. That's my girl. Show them what you're made of. Sunday morning dawned clear and bright, a beautiful Chicago autumn day that belied the storm brewing inside the Perez household. I woke early, dressed carefully in a simple navy dress James had always liked, and went downstairs to make coffee. For the first time in months, I used the coffee grinder without hesitation. The familiar sound was like music to my ears. Gabriella appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, her hair disheveled, her face twisted with annoyance. "Mother-in-law, what did I tell you about making noise in the morning?" I looked at her calmly. "I'm making coffee for my family. My house, my rules." She blinked, clearly taken aback by my unexpected defiance. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. "Who could that be so early?" she asked, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. "I'll get it," I said, moving past her toward the front door. Matthew Thompson stood on my porch, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, a leather briefcase in his hand. "Right on time," I said, stepping back to let him in. Gabriella appeared in the hallway, her face pale. "Who are you?" Matthew regarded her coolly. "Matthew Thompson, attorney at law. I'm here to speak with Mrs. Laura Perez." "An attorney? What does she need an attorney for?" Gabriella's voice rose slightly, a note of panic creeping in. "That's a matter I'll be discussing with my client," Matthew replied, his professional demeanor unflappable. "Where is she?" I'm right here," I said, stepping forward. And for the first time in 2 years, Gabriella truly saw me, not as the submissive old lady, not as the foolish mother-in-law, but as what I had always been, the owner of this house and the woman who was about to take it all back. Matthew and I settled in the living room. Gabriella hovered in the kitchen doorway, pretending to make herself coffee, but watching us intently. Isabella, Marcus, and Sophia came downstairs, greeting Matthew with warm hugs. They'd known him all their lives as their father's best friend. "Mrs. Perez," Matthew said loudly, clearly enough for Gabriella to hear, "I need you to review these documents and confirm a few things." He pulled out a folder, but it wasn't the folder with the evidence. Not yet. It was a trap. "I have the updated appraisal of your property here," he continued, his voice carrying. "The house is now valued at $850,000, considerably more than when you and James purchased it." I saw Gabriella freeze in the kitchen. She was listening to every word. "I also need to confirm if you've signed any power of attorney documents recently." "No," I said firmly. "I have never signed a power of attorney for anyone." Gabriella appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of forced calm. "Mother-in-law, what's going on here?" "Legal matters," I replied. "Nothing that concerns you." She tried to approach, but Matthew intervened. "Mrs. Perez, this is a private conversation between my client and myself. Could you please give us a moment?" She stood there, frozen, then nodded stiffly and retreated upstairs. But I knew she was listening from the landing. Perfect. Matthew lowered his voice. "We need Raphael to be present for the final confrontation. When does he get home from his morning run?" "He should be back any minute," I said, glancing at the clock. It was just after 9. "And your other children are ready?" "All of them. Isabella, Marcus, Sophia, and my sister Eleanor. They're waiting for my signal." "Then it's time. Are you nervous?" I took a deep breath. "Terrified, but also ready." Matthew smiled, a fierce, approving look in his eyes. "James would be proud of you, Laura. So proud." Just then we heard the front door open and close. Raphael was home. "Mom," he called. "There's a car in the driveway I don't recognize." "We're in the living room, son," I called back. Raphael appeared in the doorway, still in his running clothes, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. He stopped short when he saw Matthew. "Mr. Thompson, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Raphael," Matthew said, standing to shake my son's hand. "It's been too long. Why don't you sit down? We have some important matters to discuss." Raphael looked confused, but took a seat on the sofa. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" "Why don't you go change, son?" I suggested. "And ask Gabriella to come down. This involves both of you." Raphael hesitated, then nodded and went upstairs. I could hear their muffled voices above us, Gabriella's tone urgent and questioning. Isabella appeared in the doorway. "Is it time, Mom?" I nodded. "Tell everyone to come in." My children and Eleanor gathered in the living room, taking seats around me like a protective circle. Matthew arranged his papers on the coffee table. When Raphael and Gabriella came back downstairs, they paused in the doorway, taking in the scene before them. "What's this, a family meeting?" Raphael asked, attempting a joking tone that fell flat in the tense atmosphere. "Yes, Raphael, it is," I said. "Please, both of you sit down." Gabriella grabbed Raphael's hand, pulling him to the love seat farthest from me. Her eyes darted around the room from face to face like a trapped animal looking for escape. "Raphael, Gabriella," I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "I've gathered everyone here because we need to discuss something very serious." "What is it, Mom?" Raphael asked, his forehead creased with worry. "Are you sick?" "No, I'm not sick, but our family is." I took a deep breath. For the past 2 years, I have been subjected to emotional abuse, financial theft, and a deliberate campaign to isolate me from my family and friends. Gabriella's face drained of color. Raphael looked stunned. "Mom, what are you talking about?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm talking about this." I nodded to Matthew, who opened the folder and began laying documents on the coffee table. Bank statements showing $89,000 withdrawn from my accounts without my knowledge or consent. "Mother-in-law, that's not true," Gabriella protested. "I've been managing your finances just like we agreed." "And this," Matthew continued, placing more papers on the table. "Pawn tickets for jewelry valued at $35,000, pawned under the name of Gabriella Perez." "What?" Raphael turned to his wife, his face pale. "The jewelry? You said it was donated." "And these," I said, pulling out my phone. "Recordings of conversations in this house." I pressed play, and Gabriella's voice filled the room. "I've almost convinced Raphael to get the old woman to sign over power of attorney. After that, we can do whatever we want." Raphael flinched as if he'd been struck. "What is that? What is this?" "That's your wife on my birthday, talking to her friends in our kitchen while I sat in the corner, invisible." I pressed play again. "The old woman has already signed a bunch of papers without reading them. Raphael has power of attorney. It's just a matter of time." "That's not true," Gabriella shouted, jumping to her feet. "I never said that. She's making this up." "No." Isabella stood, her voice cold with fury. "We all heard it. It's her voice, her words." I pressed play one more time. "I've almost convinced Raphael to put her in a home. He has a cousin in Nashville who runs a nice facility. It's not too expensive. And once she's there, we sell this old house. We buy something modern and keep the rest. $800,000 this place is worth. Can you imagine?" Raphael staggered to his feet, his face ashen. "No," he whispered. "It can't be. And is this a lie too?" Eleanor placed the photos of the jewelry from the pawn shop on the table. "The jewelry you donated?" Gabriella looked at the photos, and what little color remained drained from her face. I was going to get them back." "With what money?" Marcus demanded, throwing the bank statements onto the table. "With the $89,000 you stole from our mother?" The numbers were right there, highlighted in yellow, impossible to deny. Transfers, withdrawals, excessive purchases, all in the name of Gabriella Perez. Raphael took the papers with trembling hands. "Gabriella, what is this?" His voice was hollow, disbelieving. We needed the money for the house, for what, Raphael?" I asked softly. "You live in my house. You don't pay rent. What did you need so much money for?" "For our future," Gabriella burst out, tears streaming down her face now, though I couldn't tell if they were from fear or rage. "Your mother has more than enough. She doesn't need all that money just sitting there." "It's not your money," Sophia said, her voice thick with disgust. "It never was." Gabriella turned to me, her tears drying up remarkably quickly as she switched tactics. Mother-in-law, please. I was only trying to help, to manage the money properly. You know how forgetful you've been, how confused. Remember last month when you couldn't find your glasses and accused me of hiding them? Help? I stood up and my voice echoed in the room. Does help mean stealing my jewelry, planning to put me in a home, telling your friends I'm senile, making me afraid to use my own coffee maker in the morning? I never said those things, Gabriella insisted, turning to Raphael. Honey, you know me. She's confused. Stop. Raphael's voice was barely audible. Just stop. He looked up and I saw tears streaming down his face. I heard you, he said to Gabriella. The night of my mother's birthday, you were in the kitchen with your friends. You said she wasn't thinking straight anymore, that we should put her in a home. His voice broke. Raphael, no, Gabriella pleaded, reaching for him. And I did nothing. Raphael's shoulders slumped under the weight of his guilt. I heard her say those things, and I didn't defend you, Mom. I let her humiliate you. I let her steal from you. I failed you. I failed Dad. He turned to me, his eyes desperate. Mom, forgive me. I was a coward. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to admit that the woman I married could do this to you. Gabriella tried to grab his arm. Raphael, honey, listen to me. Don't touch me. He recoiled from her, disgust written across his face. You lied to me. You manipulated me. You made me betray my own mother. I did it for us, Gabriella cried, her mask finally slipping to reveal the rage beneath. For our future. Your mother had everything, this big house, the money, the jewelry, while we were crammed in that tiny apartment. It wasn't yours to take, Raphael shouted, his voice breaking. None of it was yours. He turned back to me. Mom, tell me what to do. Anything. I'll fix this. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. Raphael, there's only one way to fix this. I looked Gabriella straight in the eye. Either you return every single dollar you stole, sign a document renouncing any and all claim to my estate, and move out of my house immediately. Gabriella's mouth fell open, incredulous. Or you face criminal charges for aggravated family fraud under the Illinois State Penal Code. Eleanor produced a document. 3 to 12 years in prison. That's what you're facing, Gabriella. We've already consulted with several criminal lawyers. The case is airtight. Gabriella swayed on her feet. No, you can't do this to me. You did this to yourself, Isabella said coldly. No one forced you to steal. I didn't steal. I was managing the family's money. There is no family money. My voice cut through the air like a knife. You are not my family. You are a thief who took advantage of my loneliness. And it's over. Raphael, Gabriella turned to my son, pleading. Tell them it's not true. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. But Raphael looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. Get out of this house. What? I said get out. I never want to see you again. Gabriella started crying for real now. No, you can't do this. I love you, Raphael. I did it all because I love you. You don't love anyone but yourself, Raphael said, his voice thick with disgust. Matthew placed the documents in front of her. Sign, or we call the police right now. Gabriella looked at the papers, then at Raphael, then at me, and then, defeated, she picked up the pen. One by one, she signed each document. A commitment to repay $89,000 within 60 days, a renunciation of all rights to the property of Laura Perez, an agreement to vacate the premises immediately. When she finished, she dropped the pen. Happy? She spat at me. Are you happy now? No, I said truthfully. But I am at peace. Gabriella stood up, her face twisted with hate. She gave Raphael one last pleading look, but he turned away. Without another word, she walked upstairs. We heard her packing, drawers opening and closing, clothes being thrown into suitcases. An hour later, she came down with 2 large suitcases. Raphael didn't look at her. She stopped at the door, turning to face us all one last time. "You're going to regret this one day, you old woman." "No," I said calmly. "The only one who is going to regret this is you. When you're alone and realize you lost everything because of your greed." Gabriella walked out, and I closed the door behind her for good. The silence in the house was deafening. Raphael stood in the middle of the living room, looking lost. Then, without a word, he sank to his knees in front of me. "Mom," he choked out, "I'm so sorry. I can never make this right." I knelt beside him, not as easily as I once could, but I managed, and took his face in my hands. "Raphael, listen to me. What Gabriella did was wrong, but you're my son. You're James's son, and I love you. How can you, after what I let happen to you?" "Because that's what mothers do. We love our children through their mistakes, even the big ones." He broke down then, sobbing in my arms like he hadn't since he was a little boy, and I held him, because despite everything, he was still my baby. Eleanor approached, laying a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Laura, do you want to file a police report? We have enough evidence for criminal charges." I looked down at Raphael, then up at my other children, their faces tense with concern and lingering anger. "No," I decided. "Not unless she breaks the repayment agreement or tries to come back. I don't want a prolonged legal battle. I just want my life back." Matthew nodded. "Then we'll focus on recovering what was taken and making sure she stays away." He gathered his papers. "I'll start the process to recover the jewelry from the pawn shop tomorrow." As he prepared to leave, he paused by the door. "Laura, you were magnificent today. James would be proud." He smiled, a rare, warm expression on his usually stoic face. "I'll be in touch tomorrow. We're not done yet." After he left, my children gathered around me. Isabella made tea. Marcus ordered takeout from my favorite Italian restaurant. No one felt like cooking. Sophia sat next to me on the sofa, holding my hand. "Mom," she said quietly, "why didn't you tell us sooner what was happening?" I sighed, the weight of the past 2 years settling on me. "I was ashamed. I felt foolish for letting it get so far. And I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, that you'd think I was just a confused old woman, like she kept saying." "We would have believed you," Marcus said fiercely. "Always. I know that now." I squeezed Sophia's hand. "But it's over. She's gone, and we're together again." As the day wore on, the tension in the house gradually eased. By evening, we were sharing memories of James, laughing at old family stories, healing the rifts that had formed. Raphael remained quiet, still processing his role in what had happened, but he stayed with us, listening, occasionally offering a small smile. That night, as I prepared for bed, I felt a strange lightness. The house was full of my children. My finances were back under my control. The threat of being sent away to a home was gone. I looked at James's photo on my nightstand. "We did it," I whispered. "The first battle is won." But I knew this was just the beginning. Gabriella still had my jewelry. She still owed me $89,000, and the emotional scars of the past 2 years wouldn't heal overnight. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for tonight I could rest, knowing I had reclaimed what was most important: my dignity, my home, and my family. I slept soundly for the first time in years. The house felt strange after Gabriella left. Quiet, but not the heavy silence of the past 2 years. It was a stillness that felt clean, as if the air itself had been purified of a toxic presence. Raphael sat on the couch for hours that night after everyone else had gone to bed. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. He just stared into space, processing the enormity of what had happened. My other children stayed the night. Isabella slept in her old room. Marcus and Sophia took the guest rooms. And I, for the first time in years, slept through the night without nightmares, without fear. The next morning, Raphael came to my room. His eyes were red and puffy. He clearly hadn't slept. "Mom, can we talk?" I patted the edge of the bed, inviting him to sit. He did, but kept a distance between us, as if he didn't feel worthy of being close. "I don't have the words to ask for your forgiveness," he began, his voice hoarse. "What I did, what I allowed to happen, it's unforgivable." "Raphael—" "No, Mom. Let me say this." He took a deep breath. "Dad loved you with his whole soul. He respected you. He admired you. He always said you were the strongest person he'd ever known." Tears welled in his eyes. "And when he died, I should have been the man who took care of you, who protected you." The tears spilled over, running down his cheeks. "Instead, I let that woman come into your life and destroy you. I heard her humiliate you, and I said nothing. I saw her steal from you, and I looked the other way." His voice cracked. I even nodded along when she planned to put you in a home." He covered his face with his hands. "How can you even look at me? Mom, I don't deserve your forgiveness." I put my hand on his shoulder. "Raphael, listen to me." He looked up, his face a mask of shame and self-loathing. "Gabriella was clever. She knew exactly how to manipulate you, how to make you feel guilty, how to isolate you from me." "But I'm a grown man," he protested. "I should have seen it. I should have stopped it." "And you did see it in the end. When it mattered, you chose to do the right thing. You threw Gabriella out. You defended me. After 2 years of letting her abuse you, after almost letting her put you in a home and steal your house." "Raphael," I took his hands, forcing him to look at me. "I forgive you." "How can you?" "Because you're my son, because I love you, and because I know the good man you really are, the man your father raised you to be." "I failed him. I failed you." "Then make it right. Not through guilt or shame, but through action. Be the son I know you can be." He nodded, wiping his eyes. "I will, Mom. I promise. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I will make this right." I hugged him, and he clung to me like he used to when he was a child waking from a bad dream. The smell of his hair reminded me of when he was little and would fall asleep in my arms. Despite everything, despite the hurt and betrayal, he was still my son, and I still loved him. That afternoon, Matthew called with news. "Laura, we need to get your jewelry back. The pawn ticket is in Gabriella's name, so technically she's the one who has to retrieve them." "But she won't do it." "Exactly. So we need to apply pressure. Do you have a way to contact her?" "Raphael has her number." "Good. Have him call her and say that if the jewelry isn't returned in 3 days, we're filing criminal charges." Raphael made the call that evening, with all of us gathered around the kitchen table. He put the phone on speaker. Gabriella answered on the 3rd ring. "What do you want?" Her voice was bitter, hostile. "The jewelry," Raphael said, his voice steady. "You have 3 days to get it out of pawn and return it to my mother, or she presses charges." "I don't have the money to get it out of the pawn shop." "Then find it, because if every piece isn't back here in 3 days, you're going to jail. And I'm not kidding, Gabriella." There was a silence. "I hate all of you." She hung up. Raphael looked at me, his expression grim but determined. "She'll do it. She knows we're serious." 2 days later, a package arrived at the house. Inside, wrapped carelessly in newspaper as if they were worthless trinkets, was my jewelry, The emerald earrings James had given me on our 20th anniversary, the pearl necklace from my mother, the gold bracelets I received when each of my children was born, the diamond ring for my first granddaughter. I took the pearl necklace in my hands, and tears fell freely. These were the pearls my mother had given me on my wedding day, the ones I had worn to every important event in my life since. They were back where they belonged. "You got them back, Mom," Isabella said, hugging me. "Yes," I whispered, clutching the pearls to my heart. "I got them back." But the most important thing was still missing: the money. Matthew started the legal process to recover the $89,000. Gabriella had signed the repayment agreement for 60 days, but we all knew she didn't have that kind of money. She'll have to sell things, borrow, or get a job that allows her to make payments, Matthew explained. But she will pay, because if she doesn't, she goes straight to prison. The following weeks were about rebuilding. I had all the locks on the house changed. Raphael helped me, his way of beginning to make amends. I regained control of my bank accounts. I opened a new one that only I managed. I went back to my book club. Linda greeted me with tears in her eyes. "Laura, I thought we'd never see you again." "Me too," I said, hugging her. "But here I am." I told them everything, Linda and my other friends from the club. They listened in silence, some with tears, others with outrage. "We should have done more," Linda said, squeezing my hand. "We should have insisted when we saw something was wrong." "It's not your fault," I assured her. Gabriella was a very good liar. But the most important conversation was one I had with Raphael one evening as we sat in the backyard on the old bench, the same spot where James used to grill on Sundays. "Mom, I want a divorce." I looked at him, studying his face. "Are you sure?" "Completely. I can't stay married to someone who did so much harm to my family. To you." "Raphael, you don't have to do this for me." "I'm doing it for me," he said firmly, "because when I look in the mirror, I don't recognize myself anymore. I became someone Dad would have been ashamed of, and I need to find my way back." "Your father loved you, son, and he would be proud that you had the courage to make things right." "Do you think so?" "I know it." Raphael started the divorce proceedings that week. Gabriella fought it, of course. She asked for alimony, a share of their marital property, but there was nothing. They had lived in my house, on my money. There were no joint assets to divide. The judge ruled in Raphael's favor. While the divorce was being finalized, Gabriella started paying me back. $500 the first week, $1,000 the next. They were small amounts, but they were payments. Matthew kept a strict record. "At this rate, it will take her years to pay you back," he told me. "It doesn't matter as long as she pays," I replied. Because the important thing wasn't the money anymore. It was justice. It was knowing that Gabriella had lost everything. Her husband, the house, the comfort, the life she had tried to steal. And I had gotten back what was mine. My dignity, my family, my peace. 6 months after the confrontation, Raphael was still living with me. But it was different now. He cooked, he cleaned, he came with me to the market. He asked for my opinion on everything. He was my son again. One afternoon, as we were having coffee in the backyard, he told me, "Mom, I want you to know I'm going to make up for everything that happened. I'll work hard. I'll help you with everything you need. And when you're gone..." "Raphael, don't talk like that." "Let me finish. When you're gone, hopefully many, many years from now, I'm going to make sure this house, your legacy, everything you and Dad built, is respected and honored. It's the least I can do." "You're already doing it, son. Every day." And it was true, because the man sitting across from me was not the weak, manipulated person from months ago. He was a man who had fallen, yes, but who had learned how to get back up. Just like me. That night, I returned my jewelry to the safe, but this time I changed the combination. And only I knew it. Because I had learned the hardest lesson of my life. Never, ever give your power away to someone else, no matter how much you love them, no matter how much you trust them. Your life, your money, your decisions are yours, and no one has the right to take them from you. The house settled into a new rhythm after Gabriella's departure. Each morning I woke to the aroma of freshly ground coffee. No more instant coffee, no more tiptoeing around my own kitchen. I'd come downstairs to find Raphael already there, newspaper open, breakfast cooking. "Good morning, Mom," he'd say, sliding a cup of coffee toward me, prepared exactly the way I liked it, with a splash of cream and no sugar. Just as James used to make it. Our relationship was healing, but there were still moments of awkwardness, of remembered pain. Sometimes I'd catch Raphael watching me with a look of such guilt that it broke my heart. Other times he'd start to say something, then stop abruptly, as if afraid his opinion no longer mattered. "Raphael," I said one morning after such a moment, "you can disagree with me. You can have your own thoughts. I won't break." He looked up, surprised. I don't want to upset you. After everything, we're still family," I said firmly. "And family means honest conversations, not walking on eggshells." He nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Like when Dad and I would argue about politics at the dinner table?" "Exactly like that," I laughed. James always said the best family discussions happened over good food and strong opinions. It was the first time we'd mentioned James so casually since before Gabriella. It felt like a breakthrough. My other children had returned to their lives. Isabella to Denver, Marcus to Nashville, Sophia to Austin. But they called more frequently now. Not just quick check-ins, but real conversations. They were vigilant, protective, determined not to let another Gabriella slip into my life. "Mom, how's the new security system?" Isabella asked during our weekly call. She had insisted on having one installed after everything that happened. "It's fine, though I'm still getting used to all the beeping," I admitted. "But Raphael set up the app on my phone, so I can see who's at the door without getting up." "Good. And you're feeling okay about being in the house? No bad memories?" I looked around the kitchen as I spoke, at the white cabinets and granite countertops Gabriella had insisted on. "I'm thinking of renovating again, actually, bringing back some warmth to the place." "I think that's a wonderful idea," Isabella said. "Make it yours again." And that's exactly what I was doing piece by piece. I rehung James's photographs in the hallway. I retrieved his books from the basement and returned them to the shelves. I brought his favorite armchair back to its spot by the window, where the afternoon sun would warm it just the way he liked. The legal proceedings continued steadily. The divorce between Raphael and Gabriella was finalized 4 months after she left. She didn't contest it in the end, perhaps realizing she had lost this battle. The repayment plan was another matter. Matthew kept meticulous records of each payment she made, usually small amounts, sometimes skipping weeks entirely. "She's testing us," Matthew said during one of our regular meetings, "seeing if we'll follow through on our threat of criminal charges." "What should we do?" I asked. "Let's give her a reminder. I'll have my assistant call and reinforce that the agreement is legally binding and that we're keeping detailed records of every payment and missed payment." The call seemed to work. The payments became more regular, though still small. 500 here, 700 is there. At that rate, it would take years to recover the full 89,000. But as Matthew reminded me, it's not just about the money, it's about accountability. Raphael was rebuilding his life, too. He'd taken a leave of absence from the investment firm where he and Gabriella had worked, unable to face the gossip and questions. Instead, he'd started consulting independently, working from home. I often found him at James's old desk in the study, surrounded by papers and spreadsheets, focused in a way I hadn't seen since before Gabriella. "It's going well," he told me one evening as we prepared dinner together. "I signed 2 new clients this week. Small businesses, but it's a start." "Your father would be proud," I said, passing him the salad bowl. "He always said you had a head for business." "I'm thinking of specializing in retirement planning," Raphael continued, "helping seniors protect their assets, plan for long-term care, that sort of thing." I looked at him, understanding dawning, because of what happened to me. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. "If someone had helped you set things up properly after Dad died, if there had been more safeguards in place." "Raphael, what happened wasn't because of poor planning. It was because of Gabriella's deliberate deception." "I know, but still there are so many vulnerable seniors out there. People like you who might not have family nearby, who might trust the wrong person." He finally looked up, determination in his eyes. "I could help them." I squeezed his arm. "I think that's a wonderful idea." That night, lying in bed, I thought about how tragedy often creates purpose. Raphael was finding his way forward by helping others avoid what had happened to me. I, too, was discovering a new sense of purpose. Linda had asked me to speak to our book club about financial abuse of the elderly. "Your story could help others, Laura," she'd said. "So many women our age are vulnerable, and they don't even know it." I'd agreed, despite my initial reluctance to share something so personal. The meeting was scheduled for the following month. I was nervous, but determined. If my experience could help even one person avoid what I'd gone through, it would be worth it. But before that could happen, I received a call that would change everything once again. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 6 months after Gabriella had left. I was in the garden, pruning the rose bushes James had planted years ago, when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mrs. Laura Perez," a woman's voice, formal and professional. "Yes, this is she." "This is Monica Evans from the law firm Evans & Associates. I represent Mrs. Gabriella Perez." My hand tightened on the pruning shears. "What does she want?" "My client is requesting a meeting with you in person. She says it's urgent." "I have nothing to say to her." "Mrs. Perez, I understand your position, but I assure you it will be worth your while to hear what she has to say. Could you meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. at my office?" Something in her tone made me hesitate. "What is this about?" "I would prefer my client explain it to you in person, but I can tell you she has a proposal that I believe you'll find interesting." That night I called Matthew. "Do you think I should go?" "Go, but I'm coming with you, and don't sign anything until I've reviewed it." "Do you think it's a trap?" "With Gabriella, anything is possible. But if she has a lawyer, it means she wants to do things legally. That's a good sign." The next day, Matthew and I arrived at Monica Evans' law firm. It was a modest office in a commercial building downtown, nothing like the prestigious space where Matthew worked, but it looked professional enough. We were shown into a conference room, and there she was, Gabriella. But she was not the same woman who had left my house 6 months ago. She was thin, too thin. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup on her face. She wore jeans and a plain blouse, a far cry from the stylish outfits she'd favored in my home. For a moment I almost felt pity. Almost. "Mrs. Perez, Mr. Thompson," Monica Evans said, gesturing to the chairs across from Gabriella. "Thank you for coming. My client requested this meeting because she has a proposal to settle her debt with you." "She's making payments," I said. "That was the agreement." "I know," Gabriella interjected, her voice lacking its usual confidence. "But at this rate it will take me 8 years to pay you back everything. And I can't live like this for 8 years. You should have thought of that before, Matthew said coldly. Gabriella lowered her head. I know, and you have every right to hate me. I was a monster, a thief, a manipulator. And now you've come to apologize? I asked, skepticism clear in my voice. You think saying I'm sorry fixes everything? No, she said, looking up at me with reddened eyes. I know nothing I can say will fix what I did, but I want to try to make it right. Monica Evans placed a folder on the table. My client recently inherited an apartment from her maternal grandmother. It is valued at $90,000. She opened the folder, showing deeds, appraisals, documents. Gabriella proposes to sign over this apartment to you as full payment of her debt. The $90,000 covers the $89,000 she owes, plus interest and legal fees. Matthew took the documents and began to review them carefully. I looked at Gabriella. Why? Why not just sell it and pay me the cash? Gabriella took a deep breath. Because I need to close this chapter. I need you to forgive me so I can move on with my life. You don't need my forgiveness for anything. Yes, I do. For the first time, I saw real emotion in her face. These past 6 months have been hell. I lost everything. My husband, my home, my reputation. My friends turned their backs on me when they found out what I did. She started to cry, not the calculated tears I'd seen before, but messy, ugly sobbing. I work 12 hours a day at a call center to pay rent on a miserable little room. I eat once a day. I can't sleep thinking about everything I destroyed. Good, Matthew said sharply. That's what you deserve. I know, she whispered, wiping her tears with a tissue. I know, but I swear I have changed. I understand what I did, and every single night I regret it. Regret doesn't bring back the time you stole from me, I said. It doesn't bring back the dignity you took. It doesn't erase the humiliation. Gabriella nodded, dabbing at her eyes. You're right. None of that can be returned, but this apartment is the only thing of value I have left, and I'm giving it to you, all of it, so you know I'm truly sorry. Matthew finished reviewing the documents. Laura, everything is in order. The apartment is free of any liens. If you accept, we can make the transfer next week. I looked at the papers, then at Gabriella. Part of me wanted to refuse. I wanted her to keep paying for years, to suffer as much as I had suffered. But another part of me was tired of carrying that resentment. Where is the apartment? I asked. In Rogers Park, Monica replied. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. It needs work, but it's in a good area. An idea crossed my mind. Raphael was still living with me, but he'd need his own place eventually. Matthew seemed to read my thoughts. You could fix up that apartment and give it to Raphael as a new beginning, he suggested quietly. I looked at Gabriella, who sat there, vulnerable and defeated, so different from the confident woman who had systematically dismantled my life. I accept the apartment, but on one condition. Anything, she said quickly. I want you to sign an additional document, one where you acknowledge in writing everything you did. The fraud, the abuse, the lies, everything. What for? She asked, wariness creeping into her voice. So that if you ever try anything against me or my family again, I will have irrefutable proof. Gabriella swallowed hard. Okay, I'll sign it. Monica prepared the document right there. Gabriella wrote in her own hand. I, Gabriella Perez, acknowledge that I committed fraud and financial abuse against Mrs. Laura Perez. I pawned her jewelry without her consent. I withdrew $89,000 from her accounts without authorization. I manipulated and humiliated her for 2 years. I accept full responsibility and guilt. I am ceding the apartment in full compensation and payment of my debt. She signed it with a trembling hand. Then we all signed the transfer documents for the apartment. Everything was legalized in less than an hour. When we were done, Gabriella just sat there, looking at her hands. "Now what?" she asked softly. "Now you leave," I said. "And you never come near my family again. Ever!" "Do you forgive me?" I stopped at the door and looked at her one last time. "I don't know, Gabriella. Maybe someday, but not today." I walked out of that office with Matthew. In the elevator, he asked, "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said, and meant it. Because it's finally over. It's really over. A week later, the apartment was transferred into my name. Raphael and I went to see it. It was neglected, as Monica had said. The paint was peeling, the appliances outdated, the bathroom fixtures ancient. But it had good bones and large windows that let in plenty of light. "Mom, do you really want this to be mine?" Raphael asked as we walked through the empty rooms. "Yes, but on one condition." "What's that?" "You fix it up with your own 2 hands. You work to make it your home. I don't want it to be a handout. I want you to value it." Raphael nodded, tears in his eyes. "I will, Mom. I promise." And he did. For the next 3 months, Raphael worked every weekend on that apartment. He painted the walls, fixed the plumbing, installed new floors. I would help sometimes. Isabella came for a weekend to assist with the kitchen renovation. Marcus sent money for new appliances. Sophia mailed curtains she'd sewn herself. It became a family project, a healing process, a way to reclaim not just a physical space, but our relationships with each other. When it was finished, the apartment was beautiful, modest but cozy, clean and full of light. "It's perfect," Raphael said the day we put the last touches on it. A framed family photo on the wall, one that included James. "Are you going to move in now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. I would miss having him at home, but I knew he needed his independence. "Not yet," he said, surprising me. "If you don't mind, I'd like to stay with you a little longer. This place will be here when I'm ready, but right now, home is still with you." I hugged him, unable to speak for a moment. "I'd like that very much, son." One afternoon, a few weeks after the apartment was finished, Raphael came into the kitchen where I was preparing dinner. "Mom, something came for you." He handed me an envelope. The return address made my heart skip. Santa Fe, New Mexico. I didn't know anyone in Santa Fe. I opened it with curiosity. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Mrs. Perez, I don't expect you to read this letter. You'll probably tear it up as soon as you see my name, but I needed to write it. I've spent these past months in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I was so cruel to someone who only showed me kindness. My therapist says I was carrying a lot of resentment from my own childhood. My mother died when I was young, and my father remarried a woman who treated me like I was invisible. She would take my things, saying I didn't need them. She would talk about me to others as if I wasn't in the room. She would make decisions for me without asking. It's not an excuse. It's just an explanation. I was doing to you what was done to me, punishing you for things that had nothing to do with you. I want you to know that I live every day with the shame of what I did, and that if I could go back in time, I would do everything differently. Thank you for not putting me in jail. Thank you for giving me a chance to repay my debt. And most of all, thank you for teaching me the most important lesson of my life, that dignity cannot be bought, it cannot be sold, and it cannot be stolen. You never lost your dignity, Mrs. Perez, not even when I tried to take it from you. I hope one day I can look in the mirror and feel a fraction of the pride you must feel. With respect and regret, Gabriella. I folded the letter slowly. Raphael was watching me expectantly. What does it say? That she learned her lesson. I tucked the letter into my pocket. And that's all I needed to know. I didn't tear it up. I put it in my drawer, because despite all the harm Gabriella had done, a part of me wanted to believe that people can change, that mistakes can teach us, that even the worst falls can lead to rising stronger. A few months later, I received a call from Monica Evans. "Mrs. Perez, I'm just calling to inform you that Gabriella has moved to Santa Fe. She got a job as an administrative assistant at an elementary school." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she asked me to pass along a message. That she's rebuilding her life, that she's still in therapy, and that she thinks of you with gratitude. As strange as that sounds, gratitude. She says you taught her that actions have consequences, that you could have destroyed her legally, but you gave her a chance to redeem herself. And that saved her." I hung up the phone and sat quietly for a long moment. I didn't feel satisfaction or resentment, just acceptance. Gabriella had her path. I had mine. And that was okay. Today I woke up in my house, to the sound of birds singing in the garden. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, painting warm patterns on the floor. I got up and looked at James's photograph on my nightstand. "Good morning, my love," I whispered, touching the frame gently. "Today is a special day. Today I turned 69, but this birthday would be very different from the last one." I went downstairs to find the living room decorated with balloons and streamers. Raphael stood by the table with a homemade cake, candles already lit. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said, beaming. "The others will be here this afternoon." All my children came. Isabella flew in from Denver, Marcus from Nashville, Sophia drove up from Austin. They brought their families, my grandchildren swarming around me with handmade cards and sticky hugs. "We weren't going to miss your birthday, Mom," Isabella said, helping me arrange flowers in vases. "Never again." We spent the day like a real family. We cooked together, sharing recipes and stories. We looked through old photo albums, laughing at fashion choices from decades past. There was no tension, no secrets, no manipulation, just love. In the afternoon, Linda arrived with the other women from the book club. They brought gifts wrapped in colorful paper, flowers, and warm embraces. "Beatrice, you look radiant," Linda said, taking my hands in hers. "It's because I'm free," I replied. Finally free. That night, after everyone had gone home, Raphael and I sat in the backyard. The same chairs where James and I used to have coffee every Sunday morning now held his son and me, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Mom, there's something I want to tell you," Raphael said, a nervous edge to his voice. "Tell me, son." "I met someone." My heart gave a little leap. "A woman. Her name is Andrea. She's a teacher. I met her at the gym 3 months ago." "Tell me about her," I encouraged. "She's different." He searched for words. "Honest, simple. She works hard for her students. She doesn't care about money or appearances. She's just a good person." I smiled, genuine happiness warming me. "I would love to meet her." "Really?" He looked surprised. "I thought after Gabriella you wouldn't want me to bring anyone else home." "Raphael, not everyone is like Gabriella," I said gently. "And you deserve to be happy. You deserve real love." "I'm taking it slow," he assured me. "I'm not rushing this time. I'm getting to know her well, and if it ever gets serious, you'll be the first to meet her, and your opinion will matter." "That's my boy." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. "Mom," Raphael said finally, "did you ever really forgive Gabriella?" I thought about the question carefully. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, Raphael, and it doesn't mean what she did was okay. It means letting go of the weight of resentment so that I can live in peace. "And have you let it go?" "Most of it, yes. Some days it still hurts to remember, but I don't hate her anymore." "I don't hate her either," Raphael admitted. But I learned so much from that horrible experience. What did you learn? That real love doesn't make you feel small. It helps you grow. That a real partner supports you, doesn't control you. He looked at me, his father's eyes in his face, and that I always have to listen to my gut. Because deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I was just too scared to admit it. That's the most valuable lesson of all, son. The following months brought beautiful changes. Raphael finally moved into his apartment, but he came to visit 3 times a week. We had dinner, talked, maintained our connection. When I met Andrea, I understood why Raphael was so smitten. She was a woman with warm eyes and a genuine smile. She spoke to me with respect, but not with falseness. She asked about my life, my hobbies, my memories of James, and when she left, I told Raphael, "Now that is a good woman, son." Isabella, Marcus, and Sophia visited more often too. We took turns. 1 month, Isabella and her family would come, the next Marcus, then Sophia. My house was once again filled with grandchildren, with laughter, with life. I reclaimed my routines. I went to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, buying fresh vegetables and flowers for the living room. On Thursdays, I religiously attended my book club, which had become even more special after I shared my story with them. Several members confided similar experiences, and we formed a tighter bond of understanding and support. On Sundays, I went to church. I lit a candle for James. I talked to him in silence, telling him everything that had happened, feeling in some unexplainable way that he heard me, that he was proud. Today, as I water the plants in the garden, I stop in front of the rose bush James planted 30 years ago. It's in full bloom, red roses vibrant and full of life. I cut one and bring it inside, placing it in a vase in the living room. I think about the entire journey, about the woman I was, scared, alone, manipulated, and the woman I became, strong, independent, dignified. The jewelry is back in the safe, secure and protected. But I no longer need it to feel valuable, because I learned that my true worth isn't in objects. It's in my strength, in my ability to get back up after being knocked down, in my dignity, which no one will ever take from me again. Tonight, Raphael is bringing Andrea for dinner. Isabella called this morning to say she's planning a visit next month. Linda and I are organizing a workshop for seniors about financial security. Life goes on, richer and fuller than before. As I arrange the table for dinner, I pause by James's photograph on the sideboard. "We did it, my love," I whisper. "We came through the storm, and I'm still standing." And in that moment, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. The peace that comes from knowing who you are, what you're worth, and that no one can take that away from you. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below and let me know the city you're watching from. And if you enjoyed this story, check out 2 other channel favorites. My son's wife made me sleep in the garage, and they laughed when I left everything to my cat.